let's go through maybe like around the horn real quick since we have the three of you here as to what is your goal for the next week? And I have some thoughts on that in the presentation, but I'm curious where everyone's head's at right now.
I'll start. My goal, I've had really great success building a network. Even just this morning, I had someone reach out to me that I was like, oh God, I would love to be connected to this person. So I think my work in networking LinkedIn is rewarding that by suggesting me to other people now as well. And I think the community of VR, XR people are generally all like rooting for each other. It's like it's not hard to break in to that
Yeah.
community. What has been hard is to identify and to not be wasting my time just on fellow industry people. No offense,
Yeah.
fellow industry people, but the ones that have, but the ones that are going to write checks, like and
Yeah.
really getting and really identifying who's going to write checks and focusing a little bit more of my effort on those people because I've had like several great meetings, deep, wonderful conversations, important building relationship conversations. Um, but I don't know that I am clear, and I need to be more clear on I need these 12 people who have checkbooks to, I need to be really talking to them and convincing them, or at least giving them enough bait to want to be a part of what I'm doing.
Yeah, that is the natural evolution of this process. As you say, if I'm going to spend all this time cold messaging, I'm going to put some more effort into like making sure those people are the right people that I'm messaging and getting a hold of. And it becomes a lot more targeted towards the people that you ultimately want. I think that's a part of this process, and that means you're probably right on track there. Um, and again, like some of this stuff you can predict. Like it's nice to be able to target somebody and go right after them. But then also some of these people that you think might not be helpful that you're talking with in 6 months from now will, be the person you need to call on. And it's kind of this like timing, short-term, long-term value that comes back to you. But that's a good point. All right, so I wrote that down. Sonia, how about you? What's your goal for the next week while we
I
wait for
think I'm on it's like the direct opposite. So the people who are known connects, I'm getting really, really good. Like it's easier, obviously.
Mhm.
Like I have a follow up with an investor I met a couple of days ago, just before Christmas. He's his ticket size is quite significant as well. So if everything goes well, he's very positive. Um, I suspect closing him will be a lot easier because it's through a known person, but my cold outreach and like conversion isn't that great. I think in the UK, people are a little bit more protective of this time, particularly the type of investors I'm reaching out to. They've already done that, they've exited or whatever, and they've reached a point where they're like chilling. So I hope that after Jan 5th, things will get a little bit easier on that cold outreach and return side. So I just have to like bash out a bunch of follow-ups and a bunch of like, yeah, harassing people basically. So 5th of Jan, I don't expect it will be, but I don't want that to affect my energy of actually continuing to do it. But I know I'm gonna have to like triple down on that
Yeah.
as soon as that Monday morning hits, because that's when people are going to be a lot more open to engaging. So
Yep. I have that exact date in here, so we'll go through that strategy. But yeah, you're right. Also, it's great that your current connects are going well because ultimately that's what's going to help unlock new capital and it'll
mm.
make the cold messaging easier when you can say we have 250K committed, from smart people. Hey, Samson, Steven just showed us your egg or his egg now.
Oh, yeah,
It's so cool, dude.
he's got the new breed.
Oh, he was
That was
saying he
the
bought a bunch for his nieces. That's so cool.
Yeah, he sent me a photo of it. It's cute. It looked like she was asleep. Was she
Yeah.
asleep with that, Steven? You're on mute.
Would not be surprised if she takes it to bed with her. I think she was just watching TV or maybe some. She was definitely on the couch relaxing and cuddling with it.
Wow. That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, Sam. So we're just going around the room real quick. Then I'm gonna do a presentation, but just real quick, what's your one big goal for next week? And Marvin, I know yours.
I really want to add 20 more people into like a scheduled meeting if I can. It's a little bit tricky, you know, even what Sonia was saying, because it's like it's funny. I sent out a ton of emails like earlier this week, and I've got it all like mail track, you know, and it's all unopened. Like all of the stuff is unopened, and so there's a void, but you know, I was still able to get a couple of meetings, like I had to this morning. So I've been up and at it. And so, yeah, just kind of making sure that everybody's scheduled and locked in for that follow-up week. But still just driving, you know, recommendations and interest. So I'm kind of targeting another 20 names, really.
Awesome. Awesome. Yep. It unfortunately timing, but we're doing what we can. It's okay. It's doesn't mean it's bad. It means it's just a challenge. All right, Marvin, I hope that you have the answer that's in my head. What's your one goal for next week?
Finishing the video we're working on right now, and also already the next ones, and yeah, generating traction.
Waiting list. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Perfect. Okay. All right. So Tom said he's on his way. He's talking to some investor right now. VJ, I'm not sure. Shelly has a family thing. So there's enough of us here. I'm going to start this real quick. I'm going to try to go fast because it's a little more in depth than some of the other ones. But this is about the psychology of closing, and the psychology in my perspective comes down to two things: confidence and timing. And so we're going to talk about both of those two things. But first, we are going to talk about confidence. So this was in your mindset agreement. It was the last line in the mindset agreement. It says, we're going to ruffle some feathers, we're going to mess up, and you're going to look silly, but none of that matters. If you can promise me for these 3 months, you'll keep your eye on the goal. And then in bold, the last sentence in that whole mindset agreement, this was very important: get money in your bank account from great investors who you genuinely love. You read that sentence, and the part that might stand out is who you genuinely love. I want to go through like what this means and why this is so important to closing. This is, all of us that started this, and you might remember this slide from the very first presentation. And I want to talk about, I guess, like why I think a lot of you ended up doing this program and why I felt confident that I would be willing to like put my reputation on the line to get you all into this program. It comes down to this concept that fundraising is a partnership and sales is a partnership. And so what you're really looking for are people that you enjoy being around, you respect, you want to do things with. Like that is very important to closing capital, is that you actually like the investor and you appreciate who they are. And so for me, when I was going through this process, every one of you had like a very specific trait that I thought was awesome and that I would have been proud to help you out for fundraising. I'm not going to go through all the details of this, but like Marvin, you're sweet, dude. Like you're awesome. You're exactly what investors look for. You literally have this picture in your deck of you smiling and running on this like giant contraption you built. Like that's a true entrepreneur. You're going for something that's a crazy vision in your head. Uli's not here, but his daughter has autism, and like some of the stuff he's told me was just so moving, and he's an incredible person. And his whole business is based around helping his daughter. And so like that's somebody that I really respected and wanted to bet on. Tom, I don't think is here, but Tom, had all the credibility in the world. He's sold multiple companies. His last one had 150 employees. But also like every time I would call him, he'd be like, "Hey, I'm flying to so and so in the middle of, Waco, Texas to like take my daughters to a Broadway thing." And like he was always like helping his daughters kind of achieve their dream. And it was just really cool. I like really liked the guy. I respected him a lot. VJ, I don't think is here either, unfortunately, but he's been a doctor his whole life and he thought that medical training was bad. And so he basically moved from Australia to the United States to pursue this business. and has now built it up into a very successful early stage company. Steven, I told you this on one of our first calls, but you have like this very unique left brain, right brain ability that I think a lot of people don't have. You have the right brain creative storyteller, and you have the left brain, you were doing medical sales at the highest level. And you've just introduced me to like a lot of stuff that I didn't really realize, like how many views some of these stereoscopic videos are getting. And you were in the collective for a while, and like we had, gotten to know each other. And so anyways, it was just like clearly I wanted to help you. And so like there was a genuine love and appreciation for who you were. Samson, what you've been able to do is pretty insane. Like the fact that Steven just bought some eggs, the people you've been able to get around you, be it from Facebook, Apple, whoever it is, Steven, Morley, who just joined. Like Samson, your stuff is really impressive. And when I met you and we started talking about doing this together, it kind of blew my mind. Like I was like, that's a crazy idea. I'm not sure that's going to work. Like you're shipping eggs in the mail, and like, what are they? And you've proven that there's real demand for this stuff. So it's a very cool business. You're a very cool person. And then Sonia, you're ridiculously intelligent. You have the Oxford, you worked at United Nations, like you were an entrepreneur in your background. When I met you, it was like, oh, you clearly have intelligence, but you were so laser focused on revenue. Like that was the part that I loved the most. You were like, yeah, I'm like closing these deals, I'm closing these deals, I'm closing these deals. And you've had that same mindset basically every time we've spoken, where you're just like always closing or always selling. And so I really love that. Karam's not here. Same thing, just like doing amazing things for kids. And so what I'm trying to get at is that all people that joined this program fit these three very specific criteria that I was looking for. You're a good person, you're a true entrepreneur, and someone I believe that can raise capital. Like those three things had to be true in order for me to feel confident selling you on doing this program. I met plenty of people that were, great people and entrepreneurial, but I didn't think they could raise capital. I met people that I believe could raise capital, but like I didn't really love the person that much. I met all these combinations, but unless all three were correct, I didn't even ask if they wanted to join. I would just have the conversation, and then I would just not ask them to join. And because of that, I asked about 10 people to join this, and 8 of you accepted. And so that's like a really high closing rate, but I'm trying to like get the point across that the reason why that was something that I felt so confident asking about, and the reason why a lot of you accepted, was because I had confidence that this was going to work out if you joined. And so that's what closing sales comes down to. That's what closing fundraising comes down to. It's this idea that you're not cocky, you're confident. And basically, like confidence is the degree of certainty that something is going to happen. So I felt like because I had raised money before, and because you all had those attributes, and I also had your attributes in my head, like, yes, I can predict that you'll be able to raise capital. I had the experience of raising money, and I used the same general process. So again, I had like the ability to predict that if we got great people in here and did this great process, it would have a high likelihood of raising capital. And then I'd seen hundreds of founders raise money over the last 10 years, all, walks and types of businesses, and you all remind me of them in one way or the other. So there's pattern recognition. So again, like almost my entire like 4 to 6 weeks of getting this program going was me trying to figure out of like who gives me the most confidence that this is going to work. And like at the root of that is that I all really liked you for certain reasons. This is exactly how you need to be going about it with investors. It's like if you want to work with someone a lot, if you want to genuinely make them money, if you want to like be stuck with that person on your cap table for years, you have to actually like them. It is the most fundamental part of this that I think a lot of people don't understand. And by you checking off those boxes of you like them, they like you, that's going to give you confidence that they should be involved, because there's not that many people you're going to have, those direct connections with. And so the way that I like to reframe this is when something is a no-brainer, then you have an inherent level of confidence. And so really your job during closing is to convince yourself beyond belief that your startup is a no-brainer opportunity for this specific investor. And that's not going to be true for every investor, just like it wasn't true for everyone that wanted to do this program. And if those people didn't fit the 3 criteria I was looking for, I didn't offer that to them. And you really need to get in that same exact mindset with investors, where like your job is just what you've been doing, networking, meeting a bunch of people. There's probably some percentage of them you really like, and there's probably another percentage of them that maybe you didn't click with, they didn't get it, you didn't think they were paying attention, stuff like that. And so, you can sweep them out the door and focus on the people that you do genuinely like. And you need to convince yourself over the next 3 weeks that it is a no-brainer for these investors to fund you. These are the things that I've done to help me with this confidence for closing. And I do it almost every time I do anything. I did it with my first business, my last business. I did it with Spatial Collective getting started. I'm doing it with this fundraise program. There's 4 tricks I do. So I'll share the link later, but there's a YouTube video.
Sorry, Don, just to say, am I the only one who can't see your slides?
I can't see it either.
Yeah, I've not been, it just says loading this whole time. And I checked my internet, but I don't think it's me.
Your
Oh
words
my
are
gosh,
so much
really?
more powerful than the slides, though, Don.
Uh,
Yeah.
oh my God. That's disappointing. That must have been horrible without the slides.
Just start over from the
No, it
beginning.
was great. It was all you.
I had pictures of all you. You didn't see any of this stuff? Can you see it now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You didn't see any of this. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. All right.
Mhm.
All right. Well. Okay. That's okay. I'll start with the habits for confidence. You can see this?
No, it's going back to
It's
a
gone
loading
back to
screen.
loading.
Loading.
Okay.
No,
When
Yeah,
you
so-
project it is when it goes away. So just leave it as it is. We can see it. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Also amazing at helping with presentation. Okay, perfect. There we go. All right. So anyways, there's a few things I do that are really helpful for building this confidence. One, I have this YouTube video. It's called Guided Meditation. It's 45 minutes. It sounds a little hoaxy, whatever. You don't need to believe it or not, but I've been doing this for like years. The same video where I will go sit down and listen to this video and go through the 45 minutes. In short, it basically says like visualize the end result that would make your goal true. And then you keep coming back to that and it walks you through it. I found it to be extremely helpful. Again, it's just like the little extra 1% of confidence you can get from that when you walk into these investor meetings can make all the difference. Another thing I've been doing for a while that helps me get like that extra 1% of confidence for feeling like this business is worth an investor putting money into is I'll make a list of all the sacrifices. Every one of you are making extreme sacrifices. Tom, we were talking earlier, like you're traveling around the world, taking your daughter to be Broadway stars. And then at 3 a.m. at night, you're working on this business, right? Sonia, like you were sick, very sick, and you still push through all this. Like every one of you have a list of sacrifices you're making. VJ moved all the way to the United States for this. And so when you look at those on paper, it's my belief that you're going to say like, okay, I'm putting a lot into this. I'm going to make sure whoever gets a portion of this ownership deserves it and is someone I actually like and deserves to be on this cap table. I think another thing that's helpful is creating a list of the 3 characteristics you want your investors to have. You didn't see this slide, but this is what I was showing you. Like these were literally the 3 characteristics that I was hoping that everybody that brought into this program would have. And I did not offer opportunities to join it if you didn't have those 3 things. It was vitally important. And that's why I feel that this went well, was because I spent more of my time making sure that it was people I wanted to work with than I did doing anything else really. And then one final thing here, I would highly recommend rewatching Inga's conversation when she came to join us. She's the founder of Shapes XR. I thought like her ability, you could hear it in her voice, you could hear it in the stories she was telling. She's turning down 80 grand and asking for 500K and getting it. Like she was one of the most confident fundraisers I've had come and visit with our collective and talk with us. So I'd highly recommend rewatching that as well. All right, so I wish that the slide showed, but I'll pause there. Does anyone have any questions around specifically the confidence side of being able to feel like you're ready to close and it's time to do that?
I mean,
Okay.
one of the things that I did get today, I did get a commit for 50,000, but I am gonna send them I'm gonna send them a save for 100. Because we had a really good conversation. Well, I'm gonna send them the 50 and the 100 because I'm gonna share that I want him to be a little bit more involved with this, and I think that he's got the right mindset and some other things. But
You
suggested.
really like the person?
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Okay, it's not just the money, it's you really want to work with that person?
Yeah.
Okay, so yep, then I'm all for that. All right, so that's the confidence side of this, is the more lovey-dovey side of it. Now I'm going to go through the more strategic technical side of the psychology of this, and that is specifically around timing. So by now you should have 40 names in your scheduled. If not, just keep doing it, but the deadline for that was today. It's okay if you haven't gotten there. Xmas, Christmas is Christmas. But this next month is vitally important for us creating urgency so that you don't have investors waiting on the fence and we're actually able to get decisions from people and you're able to move on and start going back to focusing on the company and not the fundraise. So one of the key things to do is everyone you've spoken to that made it through to the bottom of your funnel, see if they can now help you fill the top of your funnel by asking for intros, just keeping warm communication channels open with everybody. The goal here is that come next Friday, we have 40 names in the intro done bucket. Again, I understand Christmas, but there needs to be a real push next week to do this because the timing is vitally important that we can create this urgency and close January 31st. So in the original agreement, when everyone joined, we said January 24th was the date. I think we should tell investors January 31st, but we'll work through the specific details of that. But essentially, this is the closing process of what I believe will work. So next week should just be massive amounts of messages, more messages than you've ever sent, a nauseating amount of message. You should hate me by the end of next week because you've sent so many messages, but just the more message you can send to cold, to warm, to anybody possible, the better. And the goal of next week's messages are to start to put meetings back to back into these pitch pocket conversations. So we've talked about this concept of pitch pockets before, but essentially the way that I've seen this work really well, also the way it was taught to me, was that you try to bucket all of your meetings and your formal pitches in back to back to back to back to back to back to back days. That way, all of the investors are on the same general timeline so that eventually when you need the decision, you start to get yeses from the people that are going to give you yeses, which allows you to then convert the maybes into yeses as well, because everybody's riding a similar momentum and working on a similar timeline. And so when I have these kind of informal verbal interest conversations is what I call them, which is what we'll be having in 2 weeks. I think about it from the perspective of if then. So if you end up liking the terms and if you like the other co-investors, then would you consider investing? And so it's non-committal. What you're really just trying to do is basically get your foot in the door to understand if that door is something you should be going through or if it's a total waste of time. And so I leave it open-ended enough to where it's like, look, things can change. We might get better investors, worse co-investors, who knows? The terms might go up and down. We might raise a little more, a little less than we initially said, like who knows? But if you end up liking the terms and other co-investors, then would you consider investing? Your goal is to just get a soft yes so that you can then say like, okay, this person has basically given me the opportunity to sell them on investing into our company by saying, yes, we're interested enough to hear more. And so that's when you have the first set of back-to-backs meetings, that's really what you're trying to do, is filter for the people that are serious enough to really look at the terms and the co-investors when that time comes. Then call it 10 days after that or so is when we're going to set up our second batch of meetings where all of these investors are back to 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 back across 3 days. And that is when we're going to go in there with a much more formal question around getting a verbal commit. The general goal with this set of meetings is that you leave the meeting with them asking for you to send over some sort of contract agreement that they can read through. They're not committed to investing. They have not maybe even given you the full number yet. They maybe have not even, gotten full approval internally, but it's just like it brings things down to reality when you send somebody an agreement that they can then look at and see all the details, because obviously the devil's in the details. And so come January 20th, you should be sending out a decent amount of these docs and asking for people to review them, give their feedback, and they'll tell you whether it's something they'd be able to sign or not. The last week, the second to last week in January is now when we're turning all of those people that we've spoken with, that we've gotten soft commitments from, light commitments, verbal commitments, like informal, like they've gone through this whole process with you. That's when we start working towards getting signatures and closing. And that's when we're pretty strict around the closing date. We're closing January 31st. Would absolutely love to have you involved because you fit the characteristics we're looking for. Is there anything more you need from me in order to help you get to a decision by January 31st? And they'll get on a call, they'll have you meet people, they'll like ask to meet someone else in your company, whatever it is. But this is the general process. Obviously, nothing's going to be this perfect. It never is. And this is where the part gets real chaotic. So it's very important to track everything in your investor pipeline. But the general premise is that we're going from, hey, just wanted to follow up. Are you interested? Yes, you are. Great. Let's talk in a week or so. You talk in the following week and you say, great, we have some more clarity on the terms and the timing. Can I send you the document for you to review it? No, no need to hard commit yet. And then the last week is when we're like, okay, hey, it's been great getting to know you. I really need to know, are you in or you out? I need to get back to building. And so we're closing everything January 31st. That is the vision of what we're trying to do here. And again, behind all this, the secret sauce of closing is timing, and timing is urgency. And so there's a few things that I've learned over the years. I'm sure you've all done some version of this same type of tricks that really help you with the closing. So in order to enhance your story that they should already be somewhat familiar with, you need to start sharing recent major wins. So what could those be? We sold 200 grand this last week. We hit, 900 grand ARR. We just got a commit from this famous investor. We just launched, a new version of our product and it's getting some real traction. Whatever it is, like you need to now take your story that is already great and raise it to the power of the recent wins that you're getting. And so that's really important. It allows you to keep open communication with everybody. You can be sending these to all these folks that you had already spoken with as ways to kind of reheat things up and show that you have real-time momentum. The other thing to do is to go have follow-up conversations with everyone you did your networking with. Almost every time I come to this part of the process, I always think to myself, like, I don't need to go network again. Like, I think I can just go straight to closing. And almost every time I've done that, I've basically, ruined it because I've tried to move too fast. And so it's really important that although this seems like a step most of you don't want to take, having a follow-up conversation with somebody is really important to do, even if they might not be able to invest directly. Like just reheating everybody, there's something about it that is very helpful. And this is my logic for why that concept works. Essentially, the more time, in my belief, the more time you spend with somebody one-on-one, the more likely they are to help you. So like you spend 30 minutes with somebody, they might give you advice. You spend an hour with somebody, they might feel confident enough to introduce you. You spend multiple hours with somebody, they might actually give you money or, introduce you to somebody with money. You just never know. And so the more time that you can spend with people that you've been networking with, the more likely it is they're going to be able to help you. The way that your pipeline should currently look right now is that you basically have two different types of people. And we were talking about this a little earlier before the call started, but you have the investors, and those are the people that can actually give you money and they can give you money. And then you have the connectors, and those are the people that can't give you money, but could still otherwise be helpful. And so this is when now we need to be a little more efficient about our networking and obviously prioritize the investors and not deprioritize the connectors, but we don't need the connectors to be into our pitch pockets on those back-to-back days. Like there's not a need to create urgency with the people that are categorized as connectors. And so if I were you, I would look through my whole pipeline that we have shared with me, and I would identify all the investors that you've already done an intro done with. So you've already spoken with them. And I would go ahead and start trying to schedule a 30-minute call with them on January 6th, 7th, or 8th. And this is going to be the beginning of us putting, 15 to 20 back-to-back-to-back meetings over those 3 days, maybe more. If they're a connector, just try to see if you can get on a call whenever they're available over the next 10 days or so. It doesn't need to be within the pitch pockets whatsoever. But again, just you never know. The more time you spend with somebody, like the more helpful they can be. And so my suggestion is definitely prioritize investors. Definitely specifically try to book those investor meetings between January 6th and January 8th. But don't forget about the connectors. They can be very valuable as well. This is how I'm planning on doing my next week. This will be the last thing, and then I'll open the floor for questions. Okay, but this is how I'm planning on doing my next week. I'm gonna try to run this process just like you all are doing it. I think it's important that I do that. Okay, so what I did was I booked out on December 30th and January 1st. Call it 5-6 hours of total time where I'm just going to be sending cold messages. Not cold messages. I'm going to be sending messages, both to warm and to cold. My goal there is to send a lot of personalized ones. So not mass messages, but like actually going through my LinkedIn, going through my old email, and like really directly going after people that I know have money. I'm going to spend the first half of the week, next week's doing that. Everyone that agrees to chat with me, I have the 15-minute Calendly where I can share my deal flow with them. And then I'm going to also be trying to schedule as many meetings back to back during those same pitch pocket days with investors so that I can then hopefully get some people that are good fits for you all and start to make intros around that same timing. So this is how I'm planning on doing it. Everybody's different, but the goal is that we should really start to be focused on building out this pitch pocket on January 6th, 7th, and 8th, where you're just packing in as many people with money that can invest as possible back to back. All right, I'll stop there. Thoughts on that?
That looks good. The only thing that's for me, I am heading to CES in Vegas, and that's like January 8th through 10th. So it's going to be a little bit tricky, but I do have some stuff that's lined up for the first part of that week.
When do you fly out? The 8th or the 7th?
Yeah, the 8th.
Okay, so that's fine. I mean, if you can do Monday, Tuesdays and just pack everything together, that's fine. You'll meet plenty of people at CES. That'll probably be worth it as well.
I'll be down there too, Samson. We'll see you there. Come by
Oh,
the
sweet. Yeah, like
VR booth too.
are you doing a booth or anything?
I am with the investment in that Roto VR company. They have the chair. Dave's
Yeah.
got a big booth, so I'm gonna help him a little bit there and just use that as selfishly to connect with other VR people that are gonna be coming by the booth.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, let's definitely plan on it. Just as a side note, I don't know if you know this, but Shark Tank is doing an open casting there on Friday. Just
fun.
Cool.
just thought I'd let you know.
Are you gonna do it?
I think so.
You'd be good on TV with those eggs. That'd be perfect. right?
Yeah, you would.
Tom, Marvin, thoughts or updates? Tom, you missed the first part. What's your big goal for the week?
I was going to say before I jump onto that, I'll be at CES as well. I'm trying to close one of our investors.
All right, we're gonna have a spatial meetup. That's it. We're gonna go get ramen.
Nice.
Perfect.
That'd be great. Yeah, ramen would be appropriate given the funding environment. But yeah, so like, so what's my big goal? We actually got a commitment from Alpha Theta, which is like the guys who, so they've definitely committed to like 1.25 million and potentially up to twice.
Nice, Tom.
But they said that we need to make a case if they're gonna double that. So like my goal is to make the case. I just told them like if they put more in, it's gonna make my life easier with other investors, and they're like, yeah, no, okay, we get it. But yeah, I mean, to get from there to cash in the bank is my goal this month. And I think we are trying to round up other investors to come in alongside them, and we're trying to find investors who we don't have to evangelize XR or music tech to. We're trying to find people who just get it and will sign quickly, rather than like we've just learned that like it's not it takes a lot of energy, and it's kind of doesn't really work very often to completely convince people who don't understand what we're doing to invest. So we've been hyper focused on hopefully people that will, and I think we're getting somewhere. But yeah, it feels like we're progressing, and hopefully the Alpha Theta. I think if we can get that over the line, everything else should hopefully fall into place. I hope, fingers crossed.
The investors that you feel aren't believers in AR VR, are they looking at your deck beforehand and accepting a meeting, or are they going
Yes.
in without knowing about the deck? Like,
They
why
are,
would
but
they take
like,
the meeting? I guess?
yeah, I think I don't know if I said it to you or someone else, but like, if your tribe, you know, you can tell everyone that you're not an AR VR company, but like our deck is full of pictures of people in headsets and avatars, and the analogy I say is it's a little bit like having your ex-partner's name tattooed on you. Like you can, it's difficult to shake. So, but yeah, I think the message is getting through to people that we weren't expecting to take meetings. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what happens, but that's just a learning. Yeah, people seem to get that like, hey, you guys are raising to move outside of this market, and that makes sense. So you know, it's helping with like more 2D investors. But yeah, whether they invest, I don't know. We'll find out.
To your point, I think if you can get Alpha Theta in, even for the 1.2, that'll be the urgency moment.
Right, and I'm going to CES to meet them to try and
Yeah.
close it. Basically, they're there.
What's your argument besides for your own self of why they should put in more money?
Well, we're having to. They're quite forensic, so we're having to build a whole load of projections with like different scenarios, which honestly is like it's like a work of fiction.
Yeah.
I just feel like I keep saying to them like this is complete bullshit. Why are we doing this? Maybe I'm a bit honest, but I'm like I don't know. Like if this is the only thing I can guarantee you guys is that this is completely wrong, up or down. But it's good because it's forcing us to really like get forensic on what we think the goals for the different channels are. But whether we can execute them, I genuinely I don't know. Like I think we can, but it feels when you're getting that forensic with a model, like you end up having conversations about things that could be completely a waste of time. But you know that's how they operate, so we have to we have to play the game.
Tom, I'm curious. I've had that same struggle as I feel my own internal investor bullshit meter go off as I'm building projections and thinking about the commitments that I can make to my investors. How have you kind of wrapped your head around that? I mean, if they're saying, "Oh, like we'd like to see this projection, that's why we're investing in you,"
Ah.
yet you like what do you feel like you're
I
really
put all the growth in year 2. I know it sounds like really, because like year 1, you don't want to put like massive growth really quickly after a round that may drag, because then come like July, I'll be having conversations about why we're like 200 grand off like the revenue number, you know, especially if it's like growing fast. So yeah, a lot of the time what we do is like back end the growth, and it just gives us a bit more time to like get ahead. That's the only way I can do it. But like honestly, I've never seen these plans ever go exactly to plan. Sometimes they're better, but like a lot of the time they're worse. And at least if you have more grace in year 1, like they can get comfortable with the fact that you aren't incompetent. If that makes sense.
Well, and clearly they believe in something that you're selling,
Yeah.
besides the artificial benchmarks that everyone's agreeing to.
Right. I think the thing for them, there's a lot of value that they get that's intangible or like hard to measure in a model. So like we make revenue for them. So, you know, our revenue, yeah, they care about us not going out of business and growing and increasing the value of the stake. But if we can demonstrate that we're creating customers for them, they're much more relaxed than. Yeah, so I guess that's the benefit of a strategic. Also, they operate really slowly. So, you know, if we have really ambitious goals and we miss them, but we're still growing fast, like generally I found that they're okay. But I just spend most of my time just being like, I am doing this for you guys, for us. Like the only thing we know is our costs, like our revenues. If we can get the marketing working, that's great, but we still have to hire the person who's going to be focused on it. So we don't even know if that person exists, let alone is good. So I don't want to like discredit the model, but it's like there's so many dependencies that I spend most of my time just like trying to reassure them that like the worst case scenario will be growth. That's basically what I spend most of my time doing.
I can also share, being in the UK, without the model, people don't even talk to you. Like after that first 20-minute conversation, the next thing they ask is pull out your model. So I've had to find ways to do this without, like, my internal bullshit meter around this is very strong. Like there are investors who've been shown interest, but like a year ago, but because I was so not okay with having to show a model that I knew was complete nonsense, like I just couldn't follow up with them or whatever. One thing through this process I've understood is like I have to find some benefit for myself and the business while I'm trying to do this completely made up activity. And it has been about actually understanding the levers of the business long term. So through the process of doing it, I now have a numerical way of justifying our tech and our tech dev process and why it kind of pulls certain levers in terms of cost or price or whatever. So I would say is like, for me, it's been about finding some benefit for me strategically, in addition to whatever it means for an investor. And the other thing has been that in the process of doing it, I've also kind of switched from a traditional financial model to a driver-led financial model. So basically, again, it's helping me think about strategic decisions for the actual business. So doing a traditional financial model, I have found really annoying and completely made up. But taking like a driver-led approach to how I'm actually building the model out has given me a sense, and it's something that I can utilize outside of just having to use it for an investor. And that's been cool.
Yeah, we've done the same. The only issue that we have is like we've never ever done really any paid marketing for VR. So now that we're doing 2D, we're starting to do paid marketing, but we don't know if the cost of customer acquisition is going to actually be anywhere near what we think it is, and we also don't know if like conversions and retention are going to be the same on 2D. So like the room for error is so vast. So I spend most of my time being like, look, this is what we know. This is kind of the range that we're in. But like, if any of these variables is off, like it's not going to look like this.
Yeah.
And they understand that. So like,
Yeah,
let's,
and I think
yeah.
that's the other thing. Like another piece of advice I got from an advisor was like, essentially, you're doing this to just get past whoever they've hired to do due diligence. That's it. Like you're not really trying to actually give the right answer because it doesn't exist. Basically, you just like whoever is sitting there, who's an analyst, whose job it is to go check this against marketing, like by industry standards, you just have to satisfy them. So also made me feel less attached to whether or not it was right. I think what you mentioned, Tom, was really smart about like giving yourself as much space as possible so you're not
Yeah.
punching yourself at the beginning. I'm gonna definitely make some
Like
adjustments.
we always found like if they ask for 2 year projections, do all the growth in year 2, because like if you can then get ahead of yourself on year 1, you've got a smaller gap to bridge. But
No,
I
we got asked for 7-year projections. I've been
yeah,
asked for like angel investors. Like it's
Yeah.
hilarious. Hey, is wild. Everyone needs to calm down, but here we are.
That's the
I've
UK.
got to run and get my wife from downstairs. She's just turned up. Hold on, I'll be back in a second.
All right, bye. Sonia, that was the UK. I dealt with that the whole time. It's horrible.
I'm just like,
Um,
I already told you, right? Someone said, "Oh, what's your EBITDA multiple?" I'm like, "This is a startup. I don't understand why you're asking me this question." Like,
But I think the other advantage of that, and this goes back to this idea of building confidence. If you can get one little thing from doing that exercise that makes you feel more confident this is going to work, whether it's true or just something in your head, it's worth doing. And so I do think all these exercises are worth it.
Really interesting on that front because I've had that, especially Keiretsu, they require it, the projections with EBITDA. And the funny thing is most of them know they're all bullshit. The only thing that they're really looking for in that is that you understand a connection to your own growth and what that looks like in a financial model. And that's where like being able to speak accurately about it, because even though it may be BS, there's the effort of being able to run a company through revenue models and through projections that allows you to say, okay, if then what, right? And then be able to say, okay, this is a possibility or a real scenario. Plus, I don't know why, but that hockey stick is still something that almost every single one of them want to see, even though they know it's all BS. It's funny because we pulled that out of our the 750 deck, and they still ask for it. They're like, I just don't see the long term, and I was like, yeah, but the 750 gets us to here, and this is attainable based on our traction.
Samson,
Like,
you're
yeah,
not
but
alone. I pulled that out of all 8 decks. I refuse to allow that to be in the main.
okay, at least I'm not alone.
Yeah. That's it is a good exercise, but yeah, it's silly. All right, but that's great. Tom's getting there. Samson, you got some soft commits. I think that you two are ahead of schedule. Like I wouldn't be expecting the soft commits to start coming in until January 10th, probably. So like maybe 10 more days is how I'm projecting it. But none of this is a science that you can project like that. But like that's great. But for the rest of you, you just got to keep having those conversations. Sonia, it sounds like you're getting there too with the people you know. And for you, it probably just comes down to like how much networking can I force myself to do, which you were at an unfair advantage of, to be fair, the last few weeks because you were in the hospital and stuff like that. But now that you're out, go network. Okay. All right. Stephen, Marvin, any thoughts, questions, updates on your round in the last week?
I just want to get back to work.
Good. Okay. Stephen?
Nothing more to add.
Okay. All right. We'll hop off. I'll text Tom. Later today, we're doing a conversation with the founder of Trip, Nanea, if anyone wants to join. She's raised 27 million, something like that. And so she'd be good to come ask questions for. And that starts in 2.5 hours. If you want to join. Other than that, take this last day to kind of recharge before the big push for next week. But you should be coming in, hitting the ground as hard as you can, Monday through Friday next week. This is the week that where all the momentum and the waves that are created, you'll be able to either ride or not ride through the end of this. So this next week is vastly important to make sure you're going overdrive. Send the double the amount of messages you've already sent in the last few weeks in 1 week. Like just push yourself to do that in this week. And I'm going to try to do the same with this schedule I have. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Adios. And see you later. Sorry the presentation didn't show the first time. It's a good one. Adios. Goodbye. Yep. Bye-bye. Go get it.